My name is Christopher Wolfe, and I am a fourth-generation Washingtonian. I know for sure about one side of my family, which is my mother's side, because her great-grandfather, her grandfather, my great-grandfather, became a fairly prominent artist in the Washington area, and so his history is pretty well documented and well known. And so he came to America, I think, originally through the Pennsylvania Dutch area, Dutch referring to German, not those from Holland, and ended up in Washington in about 1852. He was a jeweler, itinerant jeweler, I think, by trade, but got it together to build a store on 7th Street and operated it with his wife and kids, built a house at 1810 R Street. It's at the corner of 18th and R, but the houses in that neighborhood were very grand back in the day. So I'm not quite sure how he adopted art as a hobby, but he did, and displayed some of his paintings, mostly landscapes, as an amateur, in the window of the jewelry store on 7th Street. And one of the regular passers-by, someone who took his walk after lunch, his constitutional, was Samuel Kaufman, who was the publisher of the Washington Star. And he liked the works of art. I think he bought a few, and started up a friendship with Max Weyl, my great-grandfather, to the point where he offered to fund Max Weyl going back to Europe. He'd come here, obviously emigrated from Europe, to study art professionally. And so Max Weyl did in about 1867, 68, I'm thinking, leaving the wife and children to run the jewelry store, and he went to Venice and to Paris. He came back and then was an artist for his profession, and took up a role at the Corcoran School of Art, the now late lamented Corcoran School of Art as of, I think, yesterday, and began what was known as the Washington Landscape School with a number of other prominent artists of the day, and did what is called plein air painting. He would go out and put his easel up every day, show up at a spot, and paint. And some of the spots included Rock Creek Park, Haynes Point, what was known as Analostan Island, which today is known as Theodore Roosevelt Island, right across from the Georgetown Harbor. So there was a relatively small group of artists in that period of time, the Washington landscape artists, the landscape school, and apparently they hung around together, painted each other, painted landscapes. We have here in the house two portraits of Max Weyl done by his fellow artists, and some of the styles are very similar, very pleasing, very traditional. I've always joked that I'd probably have these works of art anyway, because they're by a relative. It's really lucky that I happen to like them and that they're artistically very nice as well. And one of the family members that runs the Weschler auction house, which is still operated here and has been around for a century probably, used to joke that every proper Washington family had to have a Max Weyl painting over their mantle. And there were a lot of proper Washington families that did. The Kiplingers, the White House. Our next door neighbor, when we moved in here in the Foxhall neighborhood, to our great surprise, had a Max Weyl over their fireplace. So in Washington, he was well collected. I'm proud to have a tradition of family members who've been very involved in the community, giving back to the community, volunteering for the community in lots of different ways, business and civic and social and charitable organizations.